Okay, as the computer said, this meeting is being recorded. This is the Lehigh County Authority Board of Directors meeting of January 27th, 2025. We'll have a roll call of the Board of Directors, please.
Okay, roll call of the board. Brian Noggle.
Here.
Amir Famili.
Here.
Ed Lyons.
Here.
Jeff Morgan.
Here.
Linda Rosenfeld.
Here.
Norma Cusick.
Here.
Kevin Baker. Mark Gramis.
Here.
Sean Ziller.
Here.
All right, we have 8 board members present, so we do have a quorum.
All right, thank you. The packet for the board was mailed out in advance and was made available online. So I hope everybody had an opportunity to review it. Begin with a review of the agenda for today's meeting. Any need for executive sessions?
Okay, so for today,
One second, let me text this.
I guess we're trying to refresh Liesel's feed.
Yeah, I'm texting her right now. So Brian, we also have Kevin Baker coming in. He'll be in the building shortly.
Okay. Thank you.
Give her one more minute.
All right.
All right, looks like this is reconnecting right now.
Okay, thank you.
okay, can you hear me?
All right. Going back to the review of the agenda, any need for an executive session?
Sorry about that. I am on my phone now instead of the computer. I don't know why I lost signal. Apologize for that. We have no executive sessions today, and the only change to the agenda is the second item under Finance and Administration. I'd like to postpone that item for discussion at the next meeting so I can be present and more prepared for that one.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we move on then. Is that enough, Liesel?
That's it.
Okay. Moving on then to the approval of the minutes from the January 13th, 2025 Board of Directors meeting.
So I have 2 minor comments on the minutes. Bottom of page 3, very last word, I believe should be years, plural, not year. And then the bottom of page 4, last paragraph, after expansion, should be of, not faux. Dick Bonner would appreciate my comments.
Well done, Jeff.
After those changes, make a motion that we approve the minutes. So moved. Second.
All right, that was a motion by Jeff and seconded by Linda, I think.
Yep.
All right, any questions? All in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? And I will abstain since I was not at that meeting. All right, moving on then. Oh, that motion passed. Moving on to public comments. At this time, we open up the floor to any comments on non-agenda items. Do anybody from the public have any thoughts to add?
Not at this time. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Brian and Jenny. All right, anybody else? All right, moving on then to action and discussion items. We have one item now under Finance Administration. It's Resolution 1/2025-1, Omnibus Resolution. Delegation of authority and responsibilities seeking approval. It's the blue document within the board package, digital board packet pages 8 to 19.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to kick this off, but then also have our solicitor review a little bit more of this. This is a repeat item. We had brought this item to the board a few months ago that the staff was interested in consolidating all the many resolutions. In fact, there are at least 52 of them since the 1970s, where the board of directors have delegated responsibilities to the staff. And that historical set of resolutions is pretty cumbersome to go through. So we wanted to consolidate it, update it, and refine based on current, current practices. So we had the draft in front of the governance subcommittee for one meeting. We got some feedback from that governance committee meeting, got a second draft to them more recently, and received comments that they were comfortable bringing this to the full board for review. So that's kind of why we're here today. And Kevin Reed, if you're there, I can't see you, but I'm hoping you could maybe review a little bit of the background that's in the memo and what this resolution covers.
Certainly. So as Lisa was indicating, there is a lot of resolutions out there which becomes hard to manage. So from the standpoint of basically centralizing it all into an omnibus resolution, provides some efficiencies both for the board and for staff to understand what authorities may be delegated and what authorities are not delegated. This resolution is to be read in conjunction with, or applied, I should say, in conjunction with the Municipal Authorities Act, which is what governs municipal authorities and affords a lot of powers to the board, and a lot of those powers, as is stated in the Authorities Act, may be delegated to folks as appropriate. I will highlight that for the most part, the practices that have been employed by the board and staff over the course of time is really not changing too much here. Most of this is a centralization of it into one resolution, for a couple of notable exceptions. And I will say that this wasn't done in a vacuum. Certainly we looked at statutory authority, we looked at prior resolutions of the authority, and we also looked at peer groups to see what they do. So we looked at other water and sewer authorities and saw what they do with respect to authorization and delegation from the board to administration. So there's not a lot of substantial changes, but a couple of notable ones are, and as is outlined in the menu, in the agenda. Previously, the operations purchasing approval level delegated down was matters that were $100,000 or less, could be held at the administrative level. Above that would come to the board. That's been increased to $250,000. So that's one change. Also, there was a section added governing intermunicipal operation agreements that those that were not exceeding 3 years or a total cost of $100,000 per year, those would have to be approved by the board. And then there was certain authority granted with respect to kind of real property interest, easements, things of the like, that afforded the opportunity for administration to take action if those interests were equal to if they were equal to or in excess of $50,000, it would come to the board. If they were less, that would be something that administration could handle to efficiently take care of those property rights, such that LCA could do its operations in an efficient manner. Those were the three main changes. Other than that, it stays similar. There's certain approvers, that would be CEO and CFO, and then there's certain folks who are authorized beyond that for financial transactions, such that you have good internal controls when it comes to fiscal matters. Questions?
Kevin, if I could, I just want to make one clarification and one comment. On the purchasing approval thresholds, our current threshold for professional services is actually $40,000. So that is very low, and we've suggested in this resolution increasing that to $100,000. And then for construction projects, that's where the $250,000 threshold would kick in. So I just wanted to clarify that piece. Also to note that last year we undertook a review of all the board actions that were taken in an 18-month period and found that changing those thresholds would have only eliminated 4 action items from the board's agenda. So, as you've seen over time, our agendas and our projects, they're not getting smaller, or they're getting larger, and increasing the threshold will have somewhat minimal impact in terms of what you see or don't see on the board agendas, but is a little bit more realistic in terms of what things cost today. That $40,000 threshold for professional services has been in place for 30 years or longer. So, and the other comment that I had on was on the intermunicipal operational agreements. It's just timely. We didn't plan it this way, but there is another item on the agenda today under wastewater related to our sewer operations agreement with Upper Macungie Township. If you read that material, that's the kind of operational agreement that we would be contemplating for that item in the resolution, that we'd be able to enter into those agreements administratively. There's any questions for Kevin or I or any of the staff?
I'd like to give the governance subcommittee an opportunity to make any comments if they have any.
Yeah, this is Sean. Yeah, I think this just kind of makes sense and hopefully puts us in line with other similar entities of our size and scope. It makes sense, and I think Lisa made a good point of kind of where things are with the cost of things today. It doesn't fundamentally change our board decisions or actions, but I think would just kind of help in efficiency's sake.
All right, thanks, Sean. Anybody else? And Lisa, you opened it up to staff and for any comments?
Yeah, in particular, I know that Ed Klein had some interest in seeing this standardization of our purchasing thresholds. And Ed, if you have anything you would like to say about that.
Yeah, actually, kind of what Sean had said, I think for a municipal authority this size, the amount of thresholds or the level of thresholds that we picked make a lot of sense with respect to size, with respect to the volume of projects. Quite frankly, you all know I came from the private realm, and now we're sort of in doing the same thing that I've been used to over the years, and that is bringing to the board the things that are really, really high in dollar magnitude, and keeping the small stuff out of the picture and not burdening the board with decisions on $20,000, $25,000, $40,000 items. So I think that I've been hoping for this over the last, I want to say 4 years, Lisa. So yeah, I'm ecstatic that we are going in the right direction with this.
Okay, any other comments?
I have a couple of questions.
Go ahead.
Just for clarification, so I'm 100% okay with increasing the threshold. But this threshold has a limit or not? For example, in that project, as a capital expenditure, it's under 200,000 you spend, 200,000 at the beginning, 200,000 at the middle, $200,000 at the end. Suddenly you spend $600,000, but they're independent of each other. So how are we going to go if, for example, you do 10 purchasing a year that without the board approval, that's close to $3 million. So I'm just trying to see, is there a cap? And make sure that this does not to go through the fragmentation and suddenly we have a big cost in front of us without board approval.
Yeah, that's a great question, Amir, and Ed may have also a response on that. I just wanted to point out that in the thresholds, the way that they're structured, it's intended to be kind of focused on the project budget. So if a project is budgeted for more than $250,000, then the professional services would still come to the board, even if they're less than $100,000 beyond that conceptual phase, so that you would still see them kind of building on each other toward the total project.
Okay.
Ed, did you have something? I don't know if I interrupted you.
You're going exactly where
Okay.
we're looking at this in terms of total spending. So
it was a cold day, so I read through all of them. So my apologies as asking other questions. I think maybe this is something has to kick back to the governance committee. You know, I said the higher employees to fill position, all of them, it falls in you know, that interviewing, you know, selecting everything, it falls on the page 3, on the falls on the CEO, the executive directors. I'm just, you know, you just talk about forever chemicals, that we are not forever board members and everybody moves around here. I feel there are maybe 1-2 positions within our senior management in LCA that when we hire just for sake of balance and the input of the board, to me, is essential. For example, as a CFO, if CFO goes, in my personal opinion, I'm just putting that on the table, somebody from the board, person who's in charge of finance, I think, if I'm not mistaken, Ted is there, has to be part of I suggest to be part of the interview and decision-making, just to make sure that we have check and balances between executive directors and the new CFO coming, that everything, sort of speak, is kosher here. You know, again, this is not a reflection of what is today, but we're talking about the general practices for any organization. So that's my comment. I don't know anybody has any comment on it, or does it make sense? Does it need to be kicked back to the governance committee or not?
you're looking at me, and I agree with you, quite frankly. When I interviewed for the CFO position, I interviewed in front of the board of directors, and that was almost 10 years ago. So I kind of agree that positions such as mine, there should be board insight into what I'm here to do. If you were asking me if we brought in another CFO, I would say you probably have a right to have a discussion with him.
And I'd like to just add in the perspective that what you're saying, Amir, is what we've done for the CFO position as well as legal. So the solicitor, whether it's the the hiring in-house or the contract that we currently have with King Spry. However, the board's position in the past has always been advisory. And Ed, you weren't privy to those discussions because you were the interviewee, but we did have 2 candidates, and the board did interview both candidates and provided feedback, but not a decision. And that feedback was what Oral and I used to make the decision and formulate the job offer. And that has worked. If we would like to codify that into this resolution in some way, I mean, I'm open to that. I just think there's a, um, where's the line is the question, I think.
I think, and I was on the board when Ed was hired. I think, depending on the position, the chair always has the opportunity to say, I want so-and-so, to also serve on the committee that's doing the recommendation, no matter what this says. Am I correct, Kevin?
Yes, the chair can
Right.
request that if there's an open position.
Right, so I don't think it's absolutely necessary that that this would have to be changed to say that, because I think we can always add somebody to that person.
Again, the line for me is only one position, that's the CFO, because CFO second, and this is because of finances, we have to make sure that there is a clarity and the balance of the authority between two functions. And my thinking is documenting that the CFO position, the board's input has to be, or the chair or whatever that we decide to be part of decision-making for the next generation to come. So somebody, if I read this one, what the page 3 reads that the CEO has the authority to hire anybody they want, right? So if we just document that just for the CFO, that's the lines, just one person, because to me, CFO role is a very important. That's the only thing that is my view, and you guys might disagree, but that's my suggestion, to just protect the interest of the LCA going forward beyond us.
The counter argument would be, if you don't have enough confidence in your chief executive officer to hire people, you have the wrong chief executive officer.
Yeah, I don't go that far.
Well, that's where we disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I don't, we have put us on the board for the reason, otherwise we are not here because the CEO is incompetent. They put us
But
here
we're not here to
for
run the
oversight.
company either.
Yeah.
And
But I can go either way,
I didn't view it that way. I just viewed it that we always have the opportunity, not even just the chairman, anybody can suggest that that's what we have to do. So, whatever. I mean, if the board should decide, that's okay with me too.
On this topic, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, I mean, if that is if it's, to Amir's point about the CFO, but also this kind of, which I'm perfectly fine with, the kind of historical precedent of at the chairman's discretion, isn't there some sort of language that we can include that would say, to include but not limited to, the board has discretion to include but not limited to the CFO and other positions as deemed, necessary by the chairman. If that makes sense, where we're calling out the CFO position in particular while leaving, I guess maybe additional positions, as the chairperson sees fit. Just throwing that out there.
As we have this is Brian, as we have historically done, we have provided guidance or our thoughts to the CEO, but it has always been the CEO's decision on the hiring of individuals that report directly to her. I'm all for the notion of providing input, but I don't want to go any further than that. We do not get into the practice of actually selecting ourselves.
I'm wondering if there's maybe some language we could put in, and Kevin and I could work on that addresses this concern. And I would say my opinion is that the solicitor position is also critical for the board to weigh in on because the solicitor does represent the board or the board's interests. So I think if we're going to add language that talks about the board's role in reviewing and recommending or advising, whatever words we want to put in there, I would I would opine that it should be for the CFO and the solicitor positions.
And if I
I
may,
agree, that's a good idea.
and if I may jump in, where, if in fact the board would like more specificity to Amir's point, where I think you can do that in that section on page 3, there's this concept of coordinating with the hiring team. Now, the hiring team is not necessarily specified in the current text, but you could include, or we could include language which may consist of the board for select positions, including the CFO and solicitor positions, or words to that effect, if that's the will of the board.
Brian, I have a question if we're done with this topic.
Go ahead.
Are we done with this topic? I didn't want to.
Oh, no.
Are we? That's it.
Yeah, I wanted
I
to-
think Kevin made I just want to make sure what is the feedback from what Kevin has said. Is Brian okay with that?
That sounds fine.
I mean, specific, I can read, I don't want to belabor it, but I can read the language so you can at least hear it again, and where I think you kind of augment it based upon the discussion today. It says, hire employees to fill open positions in the authority and engage in all aspects of the hiring process, including but not limited to identifying and interviewing candidates. Here's the key language: coordinating with the hiring team, which is not defined there. There you could add and augment and indicate the hiring team, including the board on such select positions as may deem necessary, including the CFO and solicitor. Words to that.
I'm fine with that.
I'm not clear what you just said. Does that mean that the chief executive officer makes the decision on the hire?
Yes.
Okay.
All it's doing is it's kind of codifying a little bit more specifically that the hiring team is undefined in this particular case. So to Amir's point, well, who's the hiring team? Is the board involved as a hiring team? You could specify that the board is when it comes to select positions.
But who has the final say on the hire?
Under this draft, and even with that change, it still would be the CEO.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. All right, can you make those modifications to this document so we can approve it, or do we need to revisit it?
I make the motion that we accept what Kevin just said. Yes, what Kevin just said, with that addition.
If you wanted to, Brian, you could say, if you could bring forth, there could be a motion brought forth to accept the resolution with such modifications with regards to the hiring team as has been set forth by the solicitor.
Okay. Is that what you said, Linda?
Exactly what I said.
I'll second that.
All right. Motion made and seconded. The second was by Kevin?
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks,
Jeff.
Jeff.
All right. Let's do a roll call vote on this.
Okay, roll call on resolution.
Hold on.
Sorry.
Are there any other questions before we do that?
So my question, Brian, was, and it doesn't impact what we're approving, but I was just curious. The first meeting of the month, we get a list of all the ongoing projects, and I don't, they give a good overview of everything. Is that based on cost, or are those just being put out there? Will that list change based on these thresholds, or we're still gonna get that same list that's with the first board packet of the month?
That's a good question, Jeff. There's really two parts to that, to this answer. First of all, That list is generated generally by the items that are at one point on the board's agenda. So if a project ever came before the board, it would be on that list until the project's complete. And that would continue. And we don't expect the project list to change a whole lot as a result of changing these thresholds. That's part one. Second part to the answer is that as we've talked about before, AJ and the engineering and asset management team have been working on implementing new project management software that will guide us in managing and tracking projects. And there's a possibility that that report might change as a result of being able to generate it from the software, from the system. That's a later in 2025 development. We're not there yet.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yep.
Okay, motion made and seconded, and all questions are in. Have a roll call vote on the approval of resolution number 2025-1. A resolution conferring approval and signatory power and certain contracts agreements, financial transactions, authority documents, and authority operations, with the suggested verbal changes that were made by our solicitor during this discussion.
All right. Thank you, Brian. Roll call for resolution 1-2025-1. Brian Noggle.
Yes.
Amir Famili.
Yes.
Ted Lyons.
Yes.
Jeff Morgan.
Yes.
Linda Rosenfeld.
Yes.
Norma Cusick.
Yes.
Mark Gramath.
Yes.
Sean Ziller.
Yes.
Thank you. That's 8 yes votes. Appreciate it. This is a good one for us. Thank you.
Okay.
But yes.
Who did I miss?
Kevin.
Oh, I'm sorry, Kevin. I didn't realize that Kevin came. I couldn't see you, Kevin.
But yes.
Okay, thank you. That's 9.
Okay. Unanimous. All right, moving on then to water. We have one topic: Suburban Division NBMA/North Whitehall Division Water System Interconnection, seeking approval. Green document within our board package and digital board packet pages 25 to 28.
Great. I think Chuck and Amy Kunkel will present this one.
Yes, thank you, Lisa. Yeah, Amy Kunkel will present this project, which is a result of a source water study that we had our consultant, Gannon Fleming, perform in 2023 and 2024. And this project is designed to enhance the resiliency and improve fire flow conditions in our North Whitehall division. So with that, I will turn it over to Amy.
Okay, so yeah, as Chuck said, last year, Gannon Fleming did a source water assessment of Central Lehigh Division and also the North Whitehall Division, and we looked at different things like capacity. Do we have the sources to meet our near-term and long-term needs for the systems? What happens if one of those sources is out of service for various reasons? And as part of the North Whitehall Division, what came out of that assessment was that right now there's a single connection that we get our source of supply from, and that in order to have redundancy, we should have a second source available. They looked at a couple different options in that assessment, and the most feasible one was to have a second interconnect with the Northampton Borough Municipal Authority. That's who we currently get all of our water for the North Whitehall Division from. The system, the North Whitehall Division is, I don't know if you can see it on the map, it's kind of a, I want to say long, skinny type water system. And right now, our interconnect with Northampton Borough Municipal Authority is on the northern end of that. So we do see if there is some sort of demand or fire maybe in the center of that system, that we end up having lower pressures in the more southern end. So the most feasible interconnect route is towards the central southern part of it. So in doing that, we'll have kind of flow coming in from two areas, from the northern part and the southern part. It overall increases capacity, it increases fire flows throughout the whole system. So what we are requesting in this is for the design phase of that second interconnect. We've already met with Northampton Borough Municipal Authority. They're open to this. We have a current agreement with them, so I think any agreements would be minor to that. It would require a meter pit. It would not require any kind of booster station because we'd be connecting to Northampton's the same pressure system. They have a couple different pressure districts, but we'd be able to stay on the same one, so we wouldn't need an extra booster station for it. We are recommending using Gannett Fleming as our engineer for this project. They've done many water projects for us. They did the source water assessment, so they're familiar with the needs for this system. They do our hydraulic modeling, so they're able to help gauge, what this improvement will mean for the system. They're also the Northampton Borough Municipal Authority engineers, so they've been really instrumental in getting us and Northampton Borough talking and, in agreement on this. So in it, we are requesting, at this time, we're requesting authorization for the design phase of this project, and also the professional services of Gannett Fleming in the amount of $240,600. The whole capital project authorization is for $340,600. That includes some legal, some potential land acquisition that we may need for that meter pit, and then the engineering services and staff.
Okay, thank you, Amy. Any questions of the board?
Just a comment. It might be helpful to have a map so we could see this, just to kind of know where it is.
It's the Schnecksville area. It's just north and then south of Schnecksville.
No, I understand. As a board member, it's kind of fun to see where this stuff sits. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah, on the map here, this is North Whitehall Township. So this blue here, I know it doesn't show roads, so this might not be too helpful, but that's the system. Like Amy said, it's a long, narrow system along Route 309 and 873 as that goes toward Neff's.
I guess what happened, yeah. Thank you.
Just a question and a comment, Brian.
Go ahead.
Northampton, their water, is that coming from wells, or do they have a water plant? I don't really know anything about them. The new water source, the old water source was from wells that are now abandoned, right?
Right, their main source of supply is the Lehigh River.
Right.
And that's currently where we get the water for north.
So it goes to their water treatment plant and then?
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know if it was just from wells. Okay. And then my other comment, just for I don't know if anybody else agrees, but it'd be nice with a big proposal like this if we had a copy of their proposal.
Yeah, great. What do you think?
That'd be great. In the future.
Yes. Thanks, John.
Any other comments from board members? Any more to the presentation? Okay, then we have before us Suburban Division NBMA / North Whitehall Division Water System Interconnection Design Phase Capital Project Authorization of $340,600 that includes a professional services again at Fleming for design and bid phases 1 and 2 for a total of $240,600. Do I have a motion for approval of this request?
I'll make that motion. This is Norma.
And I'll second Sean.
All right, motion by Norma, seconded by Sean. Are there any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you, Amy and Chuck.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to wastewater. We have 2 projects under wastewater. First one is the Allentown Division INI program programmatic support. It's talking about the Trout Creek and East Side basins, seeking approval, grade documents within our board packet, digital board packet pages 29 to 35.
All right, for this one, I believe AJ Capuzzi and Steve Boone will be jointly presenting this one.
Thanks, Liesl. I'll just give
Yes.
a quick intro. So as part of our Regional Act 537 plan for the Kleins Island sewer system, LCA is leading the effort to reduce I&I in the city of Allentown system. And as part of that, we've initiated a new program looking at basically sanitary sewer evaluation of 2 of the basins, along with some programmatic support. So Steve is our project manager for that, and he's going to present our selection here.
Good afternoon. Yeah, as AJ mentioned, this project is the sanitary sewer evaluation survey for 2 basins in the KISS system, Trout Creek and East Side, so they're specifically in the city. Just a little bit of a backstory. So in 2021, Arcadis prepared flow characterization study, which looked at the entire region. And that characterized really the inflow and infiltration degree for the region and the larger basins within. So what this program will seek to do is really narrow the focus and really home in on the sources, where they're coming from. So, we know generally what the peaking factors are, excuse me, where the inflow is high, where the infiltration's high, but we really don't know where it's coming from. And we don't really have a program in place that quantifies the effectiveness of projects once they're implemented. So really what this scope will entail is flow monitoring up front in the existing conditions. So that'll be installation of meters and rain gauges to identify and quantify the amount of flow in the existing conditions during wet weather and high groundwater conditions. Once that's complete, then there'll be level sensors, which will be proposing to put 75 level sensors in manholes throughout these 2 basins. And that will then start to narrow the focus to show where there are more targeted areas where high inflow and infiltration is occurring. With the level sensing complete, then now we can start to look at really isolating down to the neighborhood level where the sources are. And that'll be CCTV during wet weather, smoke testing, dye testing, and things that, again, take the larger basin focus, bring it to the sub-basin level, and then move to the neighborhood level and really identify by street where the sources are. So once that's complete, then we'll be able to recommend early action projects and physically get out there and do the work. I will note that this particular project does not include the engineering and implementation of those projects. This is just the study. But after the projects are in place, then the post-monitoring program would identify, essentially do the same thing that the pre-flow monitoring and rain gauge evaluation will measure. Do that after the projects are in place, and then that will show the effectiveness of the projects that were implemented. So this is a very targeted approach to quantify. This is something that, and Phil can chime in anytime if he wants, he's had a long history with the 537, but essentially the DEP has said that they're not interested in find and fix anymore. So, we've done plenty of manhole rehabilitations, lining, lots of projects, but that's really hasn't been quantified. So the DEP wants mathematical proof as to what the effectiveness of these projects are. With that, this particular program then will be the basis going forward. It's a little bit of a pilot project in a way, but we can use this elsewhere and give those quantified results to show the DEP as part of the 537 and the future connections, what the effectiveness of the projects are, and select the proper means and methods to do the work. So that's what the project is. Just briefly, I'd like to talk about our selection process. So we received proposals from 4 firms, AECOM, Arcadis, RJN, and Stantec. 3 were deemed successful. So we interviewed AECOM, Arcadis, and RJN. Well, prior to the interview, we had a team do, standardized scoring, ranking, group discussions, did it again. We know that this is a big project and it needs to be done right. So we had four individuals go through the scoring system. And then we arrived at, okay, let's interview 3 firms. We did. And subsequent to the interviews, narrowed it down to 2 firms, AECOM and Arcadis. And I would point out that at that point, we noted that there was a discrepancy in the total linear feet of CCTV. Once that was uniform between the 2 firms, we were then able to make a definitive selection to award the work to Arcadis to perform both basins. Yeah, I think I was going to say I was going to continue, but I can. So basically, we're asking, for approval of the award of both basins to Arcadis. Arcadis has been with us for a long time. I mentioned earlier that they did the 2021 flow characterization study. They've been physically in the sewers. Their field team is eager to do the work. We were very impressed with both their proposal and their interview and their team, quite frankly, and how eager they are to get out and get boots on the ground as soon as possible. I would note that this is a time-sensitive project. We're approaching spring. Groundwater conditions are going to be favorable starting in March, usually. So, really they need to be off and running as soon as possible to capture, as much as they can. And on that note too, this is a wet weather dependent type of program. If it doesn't rain and we end up with a dry spring, and this was something else that impressed us, they've indicated flexibility on how they can stage and phase what parts of the program occur to still make it valuable in 2025, with the goal of having projects identified and in the hands of the city in October, so that they can be part of capital or entertained for capital cost recovery. So really, this is a quick hitter. So a lot of work would be done in 6 months to make those projects a reality. So I'll stop talking and take questions, I guess, at this time.
Question.
Yes.
You mentioned these are 2 basins in the city system.
Yes.
How many basins are there?
8 total.
8?
These are the two highest, based on the 2021 data.
Again, it would be nice to have a map so we could, I kind of know where Trout Creek is. I'm assuming the east side is on the east side of the Lehigh River.
It is.
Okay.
Sure.
Just out of curiosity, how does that affluent get across the Lehigh River? Where does it come across? Island?
It goes to Klein's Island. There's 3 pipes enclosed in concrete under the river, just south of.
It's fun to see that. Fun to see that on a map. So
There's
get a sense of what's going on.
Gravity siphons.
Thank you.
I would just make the same comment as before. It would be nice to see a copy of the proposal. Be helpful. Thank you.
This capital expenditure is for before and after, or just for before?
This is before and after.
Before and after, so include both of them.
So the pre and post monitoring, that's all captured in this.
And just for my understanding, lack of understanding, I'm asking that question. These are only for the sewer pipe that they are leaking, is that correct?
Say that again?
This is only for sewer pipe that they are leaking?
Correct. It'll identify which pipes are leaking. Just to clarify too, we are focusing on the public side. It will allow us to understand quantified contribution of the private side generally in these two areas, but the projects specifically are only going to be on publicly owned sewers.
Does this information get included in the 537?
It is, yeah. DEP is aware of this as well.
This is Brian. You got $3 million to study 2 of the basins. Are we going to have to do something similar to the other 6 basins that are in the system? Or are you going to be able to extrapolate the results from this work for the other 6 without additional study?
No, every basin's unique to a certain extent. We hope to take the lessons learned from this and streamline the approach. We'll know what means and methods work best. So, for scale, if you did this again in 3 years after, in the same basins, it would cost less. So right now, we had to make assumptions that say 25% of the basin will require CCTV. So the scope and the fee is based on that. But Arcadis has suggested you could, realistically, it might be 10%. So we're going to start to realize some cost savings as this program develops.
Yeah,
but yes, it will be replicated across all the basins. Yeah.
I was going to add, Brian, that the one thing that we will be able to reuse is the level sensors. We're purchasing those. So they'll be able to move. That's about, I think, $400,000 of the total. So we won't have that repeated each time. We'll be able to take those same level sensors and move them to the new basin.
So just following up on that question, so do you know at this point, are there any, I assume you're putting the level sensors into sub-basins, right? Are there any of the larger basins or sub-basins that have been ruled out because they've been deemed to have a low amount of INI at this point, or you don't know, we still have to figure that out?
So we don't know. We still have to figure that out. That's the short answer.
Okay.
So 75 will be deployed. We're assuming 50 of those are going to be redeployed. So during the study, they're going to be moving these around and continuing to move them into, start at the half square mile level, move down to the quarter square mile level, and then down to the neighborhood level.
I just didn't know, based on the data we have, if there was a basin that's really, it's below whatever your criteria is, if that exists, or you're still refining that.
We have, I'll jump in here. We have, they did the basin level, then we broke it up into catchment level. So we have all the catchment level data. So Arcadis has all that, so they can rule some of the catchments out, if that's what you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
Based on 2021 data, they can rule some of those catchments out already, yes. But as Steve said, it's going to be a work in progress once they get authorized.
Yeah, sure. Thank you.
Any other board questions?
Yeah, John, I have a question, Brian. This is Mark. Looking at your numbers, I know you state in the proposal for your selection process that there was some discrepancies, and then you straighten it all out. But when I look at the differences, it seems like the only ones that really changed between the 2 major competitors for the bid was Arcadis. AECOM stayed the same, even though they assumed that there was differences between the length and all the other differences that you noted. Why is that? Why did Arcadis come in lower as a result of the changes? And then AECOM, all 3 numbers for Trout Creek, the east side, and the total together, those numbers stayed the same based on the discrepancies that you noted. That's a flag to me. I just don't understand it. I mean, I wasn't involved in the review, but if the discrepancies were with both parties, why was the other changed and not AECOM?
The discrepancy was only with one party. It was with Arcadis. They were proposing 50% of the basins would receive CCTV, which was double the length of what AECOM was proposing. And that we clarified that 25% should be the assumption. So
okay.
That's why you only see the change in Arcadis's fee.
All right, because what I'm reading here, it says during the final review it was discovered that ACOM and Arcadis assumed different total lengths. So it would just say that, maybe for clarification, you might just want to say that Arcadis just assumed different lengths.
Sure, I see how that was worded. Okay.
Brian's telling you, but he can't hear. He can't hear him.
Nope.
There we go. There we go. Now I got it. All right. Any questions? All right. Then we have before us the Allentown Division Sanitary Sewer Evaluation Survey, SSES, for the Trout Creek and East Side Basins Programmatic Support. This is for the study prior to the work being done and then after the work being done. Capital Project Authorization, Allentown Division I&I Program, Programmatic Support, Trout Creek and East Side Basins for a total amount of $3,141,000. That includes a professional services authorization to Arcadis SES Trout Creek and East Side Basins Programmatic Support and a total amount of $2,641,000. Do I have a motion for acceptance of this project?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Norma.
I'll second that.
Missed that. Sorry, who was that?
Right, I'm here.
Okay, so we have a motion made and seconded. Any questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Ayes have it. Thank you very much, AJ and Stephen.
Thank you.
All right, moving on to the second project under wastewater, we have sewer operations agreement, Upper Macungie Township sewer pump stations. Seeking approval and the purple documents within our board packet, digital board packet pages 36 to 46.
All right. I'll introduce this one, and Andrew Moore might have some comments to make about this as well. But as I alluded to earlier when we were talking about the resolution, we have an exciting operations contract to bring forth to the board today. We had discussed this previously, I believe, during the budget process last year, that some of the townships where we provide service have their own sewer systems, that they have some interest in having LCA provide operational services or or other support for them. And Upper Macungie Township is the first one to kind of try to put this in a document or a contract. So for this one, we do have a map. Ted, you might be happy to see. It looks like Chris was screen sharing for me. So on the screen is a map of the Western Lehigh County area, and the blue blob on the map roughly represents our Central Lehigh Division for water. And I put that map on the screen so you can see where the township sewer facilities lie in relation to where LCA is already providing service. So the green markers on the map within Upper Macungie Township, those are the locations of 6 sewer pump stations that the township currently operates. And they're right in the service area where our teams are operating, maintaining, doing service checks all day, every day. So from an efficiency standpoint, there's a lot of synergy there for LCA to be providing the service to these pump stations. Um, so that just gives you the sense of where these pump stations are. In talking with Upper Macungie Township over the course of a few months, they have asked us for a proposal, which we put together as an outline, and that's attached to the agreement. We put it together as an outline and then kind of learned the township very quickly approved the proposal at their last meeting earlier this month. So and you can see on the last page that the township manager signed it and showed the board approval, the township's board approval of our proposal. So essentially, what we were proposing to do is to manage the basic operation and maintenance of these 6 pump stations on behalf of the township and charge the township for recovery of our actual costs, which includes overhead costs. So we're fully covered in terms of our costs. And then subsequent to that discussion and the township approval of our proposal, we thought we should have a true agreement in place, and that's what is provided here for the board's consideration. Most of the agreement, Kevin Reed put together is kind of standard language, legal language around termination and insurances and those sorts of things. But essentially, it says that LCA will, for the term of 1 year that is renewable, we will operate these 6 pump stations and bill the township for our services. So it's kind of an exciting chance to expand the service that we're providing to the townships in our service area. And I'll just pause there and maybe turn over to Andrew to talk about your plans for operating these 6 pump stations, if you have anything you'd like to add.
Yeah, sure. So this really stems from a retirement coming out of Country Township. With all sanitary sewer systems, you're required to have a certified operator. From what I've heard from them, they were struggling to get someone in or have one of their employees get the certification. So that's really why they reached out. As Lisa mentioned, we're already all throughout that area. So it's not like we're going to be going anywhere else. We already have crews within the vicinity. The game plan really is to service these stations once per week. So we would put together a route, get all these assets into our CMMS program, get the routine maintenance schedules down, and then basically go throughout once a week, making sure, pump verification, making sure oil levels are all right, making sure any type of macerator or anything like that is still operational. The hope would also be to get some sort of SCADA communication so that we are able to operate these facilities just as though they're our own.
Do you have enough resources to see this dispose?
Good question. So that was one of the budget proposals from last year where we did have a new utility tech with the hope of getting this contract. So now that we're here, the hope is to hire an additional employee to help service.
So Andrew, just a question. Have you guys given any thought to like an annual inspection and a report to Upper Macungie on capital improvements? Because I assume this is just operational, and if you're going to be there every week, you're going to know.
Yeah, what needs to be replaced.
Railings, pumps, motors, etc.
Yeah, we're still trying to work out some of the details on how we would handle that, but the intent would be to handle it in some way like that. I mean, just with your wastewater certification, that's really the responsibility of the operator to make those recommendations of what may need to be improved. Right. So yes, something like that would definitely occur.
Okay.
That is specifically called out in our proposal on the last page in the summary, where we say that more significant repairs and replacement would be outlined in an annual report to the township.
And how does this stretch the resources of the LCA? Is this within our bandwidth, or do we have to look to the future for kind of additional resource adds?
Yeah, I think Andrew touched on that just a minute ago when we talked about the budgeted position that we talked about during last year's budget process, that we would add a position if these contracts start to come to fruition. Since we have this contract in front of us with 6 pump stations, we would be looking to add one person to add to the team to help service this contract. And we think that's going to be adequate.
Sorry, I missed that. Thanks.
That's okay. That's okay.
Are our expenses going to be fully recoverable?
Yeah, the way that we put the proposal together is to bill for actual costs. So we'll have to track on our work orders and time accounting process, how much time is spent on these, but that we would invoice for actual cost.
I can see the SCADA. What about the SCADA going to that direction? I take it they don't have SCADA on these stations now, and then Andrew was saying that proposal would be maybe to move to SCADA, so we'd be having an opportunity to continuously monitor their performance and not be surprised a week later after something failed.
So they do have a dialer system, so we will be able to get notifications whether or not we moved to integrate to our SCADA system or not.
Okay, but this contract's only for 1 year and to be updated if, so I would kind of hate to spend the money and then let's not have the contract beyond that.
Understood.
How about the employees that Upper Macungie had that must have been working on this? It must have been more than just one retiree that was working on these pump stations. Are they available for hire?
So from my understanding, it is only one main employee that is retiring. They still do have a crew that handles the collection system, and the intent is to also have them do at least one round per week. So they will also be going to the pump stations in addition to us as the certified operator.
Thank you.
Moving to the contract itself, I wanted to turn to Kevin Reed because I believe there is still an open question or two about the insurance section that we're trying to nail down, and Kevin was hoping you could speak to that.
Sure. So as Lisa indicated, we sprinkled, I guess, some lawyer dust on this just to get comfortable with different things such as indemnification and a couple other provisions. And one of those is insurance. And as currently drafted, it sets forth different coverages, but not necessarily the levels. Ed and his team have duly given to me kind of the insurance package for the authority. I had received communication from the township solicitor. They will be gathering that same information. As currently written, it just says, with limits and coverage provisions as agreed upon the parties. So that will still have to be built out. Essentially, the coverages are listed. We just need to put basically the limits with respect to insurance.
So just to sort of wrap this up, in terms of next steps, the township is hoping that we can begin operational services on February 1, which is very soon. So that's why we have this in front of the board asking for your approval of the agreement. And that would be subject to solicitor's final review and completion of the various sections that Kevin just mentioned related to the insurance limits. If the board is comfortable with doing it that way. And that's all we have. If there's more questions.
Okay, then we have before us a draft agreement between LCA and Upper Macungie Township called Sewer Operations Agreement between the two parties. Assuming the date of this is as of January 27th, 2025, and subject to solicitor formal final review and resolution of the insurance agreement for 6 pump stations for us to maintain those. Do I have a motion to accept this proposal as presented?
So moved. This is Norma.
Hi, Norma. Thank you.
I'll second.
Missed that again.
Mark did it.
Mark, as a second. Is that true?
No, I think it was
I didn't do
Sean.
it, but I will do it.
It was Sean who seconded.
Sean. All right. All right. Norma made the motion and seconded by Sean. Thank you. All right. Let's do a roll call and a vote on this.
Okay, a roll call on the operating agreement with Upper Macungie Township. Brian Noggle.
Yes.
Amir Famili.
Yes.
Ted Lyons,
Yes.
Jeff Morgan,
Yes.
Linda Rosenfeld,
Yes.
Norma Cusick,
Yes.
Kevin Baker,
Yes.
Mark Gramis,
Yes.
Sean Ziller.
Yes.
Thank you. That's unanimous, 9 votes.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody.
Awesome.
It sounds like an interesting project for us to take care of. All right. We don't do 6 and 7. Actually, 7 would be what we would normally do, but the December 2024 report will be distributed at the February 10th, 2025 meeting. Monthly system operations overview. Digital board packet pages 47 to 50. December 2024 report was attached as a white document.
All right, so in front of you, you have the December 2024 operations report. We'll start off with all the safety incidents. In December, there were 2. One was a near miss with a mishap of not properly tying down a plastic chair in the bed of a truck. The second incident was an injury, and that was when an employee was cleaning a work surface and something went to his eye where he did not have safety glasses on.
Oh, man.
Is that a comment?
No, I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm just looking at that when I'm seeing what the root cause is. Root cause shouldn't be foreign object in the eye. The root cause should be a lack of adherence to procedures or safety violation, not wearing eyeglasses. Nobody should be working on anything that, that they don't have safety glasses on. Even if you enter in the garage, you should have safety glasses on. That's my opinion. But
No,
that's just my opinion.
We'll switch over to page number 2. Starting with water production, in all the systems really, Allentown, Central Lehigh, and all the small systems, production is down. That's just because of demand. In the winter months, we're now using less water. Going down to Klein's Island, the pre-treatment plant and the wastewater facilities, you'll also see a slight decrease from the annual average, once again because of the lower usage. However, in December, we did receive 3.68 inches of precipitation. With that being said, we are still in a drought watch in Lehigh County. There were no NOVs. There were quite the number of main breaks. We had 3 in Allentown and 2 in Suburban. And we'll switch over to the last page with all non-compliances and bypasses. You'll notice 1 permit exceedance in Arcadia. That was actually an annual average for phosphorus. And then you will also notice 4 for Sand Spring wastewater treatment plant. I did make a note here, and then also the graph on the back is in relation to this. So if you recall the project that we kicked off a few months ago with the intensification process, we really started to get process control tied together early December and really had it somewhat optimized in mid-December. So since that point, the plant has been operating very well. So the graph on the back is from 21 up to current day. The dotted line is a relationship of temperature of that wastewater. And then all of the hollow circle dots, whatever you want to call them, are ammonia results from that time frame at any time between 21 and current day. So as you can see, as that temperature starts to drop is when we really start to lose nitrification within that treatment process. So you can see it's very spotty in the first half of the graph. You'll have some good results. We would lose nitrification, we would get high results. But once those temperatures dipped, we would essentially lose all nitrification at the facility until those temperatures warmed back up in April, May. So what you see here in the dark circles are all of the ammonia results that we've had from basically the beginning of December up until middle of January when this graph was created. And as you can see, everything is very low and concentrated down there at the bottom where we're not getting those fluctuations of high results. So what this is showing is The process is going very well. Everything is looking very good. So the non-compliance is from December. We're really before we had this process squared away. I don't want to get too excited, but January looks as though we will have no permit exceedances. And I don't know that I've said that to you guys in a very long time. So that's quite exciting.
Andrew, what is the winter limit for ammonia?
For the winter limit is 6 milligrams per liter. The problem with what we see a lot is the loading. So typically the effluent flow is either right at the design or a little bit over. So when you're doing the calculations, if you're not significantly below that concentration limit, you're still going to get a permit exceedance. But even with that being said, our results have been so low that it hasn't been a concern for January as of the 22nd. So I'm open to any questions.
I think we talked about before, maybe you'll answer that question. Where can we leverage this technology within our system?
That is a good question, and I don't know that we have an answer at this point. I would say where this process would really shine is where you have a facility that already exists and is overloaded in some capacity or is struggling with consistent treatment. At this point, I don't know that we have any high candidates that we would want to transfer this over. If we wanted to get better performance at some of the facilities, this may be an avenue, but I don't know that we're having enough compliance issues where it would make sense.
Since this accelerate nitrification rate, so in the future, if you want to design something, if you use this technology, does it impact the capital cost for what we have to do?
It could. And the reason I say that is you can essentially get higher nitrification rates out of a smaller package. So if you're limited on space, maybe you don't have to design a facility that's as large. So it's going to save you on concrete tankage.
Thank you.
Andrew, just to follow up on that, so does this have any value for BOD removal, or is it just nitrification?
Yes, so it's going to provide some value in BOD removal as well.
So would it be an option at the pretreatment plant, or no?
I guess it would depend on the avenue.
To be determined.
Hard question to answer on that. But yes, there's definitely, and maybe not just for LCA, I mean, there could be other places that would be interested in some type of treatment like this. I don't know if AJ, if you have anything you wanted to add regarding this project.
Just echo what Andrew's saying about the results are really excellent, and just I think people are aware of this, but this is the first time this process has been used in any extent to our knowledge. So we've been in contact with King's Pry about potential for some kind of a
patent?
Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. Some kind of patent that would be open source that other utilities could use it. But yeah, we're still not 100% out of the woods. We want to get through February, but things are looking really good right now.
Last week was a very good test with the low temperatures. So even we've been testing every single day, getting good data all the way throughout. And there was some instability when it was very, very cold, but still we were not exceeding the actual permitted limit. So that's very good news, especially at those types of temperatures that we were seeing last week.
Okay, any other questions of Andrew or AJ? All right, thank you. Moving on now, staff comments?
I have nothing additional today.
Solicitor comments?
No comments, thank you.
Okay, public comments. We do have one on the screen from Erin.
Hey there, can you hear me?
We can.
Wonderful. My name is Erin Kinzer. I'm the owner of Bethlehem Sewerage and Excavating Service. We're in Bethlehem Township, Northampton County. This is my first time sitting in on an LCA meeting, and I am new to the business. I purchased the business last March. We use the Focalsville facility as a drop-off location for waste by primarily grease from area restaurants and commercial kitchens. Um, I'm sitting in today. I'm trying to educate myself a little bit more, but the reason for my questions and whatnot is I am seeing that local municipalities in our area are becoming increasingly stringent about grease trap management at area restaurants as a result of issues within their own sewer systems, and we're getting calls for that. At the same time, very few facilities accept grease. So if you're aware, your establishment accepts grease, but I think the next closest one is about an hour and a half away. It is increasingly difficult to schedule grease drop-offs at the facility. So things are booking out as much as 3 months in advance. So we are basically completely unable to service someone on an emergency basis because there's no place to take the grease. So I'm seeing this as, I guess, as an overarching regional planning issue, in that, like I said, very few facilities take grease, and then we're becoming more stringent. So there's two questions I have: is if there is an overall, just awareness if there's an overall regional planning issue for others, not only facilities like yourself, but other waste treatment facilities so that they can handle grease. And then the second, so I'm just curious to try to learn more about that. And then the second question is this, if LCA has considered prioritizing grease from at least the Lehigh Valley for restaurants and whatnot that grease is coming from the Lehigh Valley, or from companies like myself that are located in the Lehigh Valley and attempting to service those customers. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron.
I can try to respond to some of those questions, but would also suggest that maybe Aaron and I could connect offline as well and dive a little deeper into her questions and her observations, if that would be all right.
I think that would be good. Yes.
Yeah, I do want to say that one of we hear you absolutely, and we have heard through the whole process in 2024 that we undertook to gather stakeholder input on the operation of our pretreatment plant in Fogelsville. And we heard loud and clear that the waste hauler program is important to our region, not only for commercial and residential waste, but also the grease, and the local restaurants in our area rely very heavily on that facility. So as we have been working toward an understanding of the future capital investment that's needed for the pretreatment plant, we have prioritized making sure that we can maintain a hauler program similar to what we're doing, or potentially expand it in some way if that would be beneficial for the facility and its treatment process. So I think just at the kind of at the highest level, LCA, yes, is extremely aware of the need in our region for this service, and are trying to make plans to continue offering it. But that being said, Aaron, I'll drop my email address into the chat for you, and maybe we could connect offline and discuss a little more deeply.
Thank you very much.
Okay, are there any other public comments on any topics whatsoever?
No, thanks, Brian.
No, thanks, Brian.
Okay, Jenny and Brian, thank you for being here routinely. Board member comments.
I have one, Brian. I'd like to ask Lisa if you can give us an update on the LCA's recently acquired property, the one we're going to turn into offices.
Yes, I don't have much of an update to offer, except that we well, two things. We have incorporated that property into the broader building optimization and master planning project that we talked with you about maybe 2 months ago. Steve Boone is heading up that effort as well, so he can respond more how that's going to work. Also, we've been in contact with the township and their gosh, is this a zoning person? Steve, help me out.
Yeah. You want me to take over?
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Sure. I met with the township zoning officer on site at the property last week. They indicated that there are, so if we put people there to use the space, that triggers a change of use. So we do need a permit for that. We do on the property, so we can use it for storage of objects. But we can't occupy it without a permit in a change of use condition due to some deficiencies between residential and, basically commercial now. So that's that, but we are making progress there. And as Lisa mentioned, it is part of a larger study across LCA, all of our facilities, and how we're using our workspaces and what is the ultimate recommendation for that property to be determined.
And I'll just add, I know that we've made some progress in terms of security, and Chris has put together a plan to update the garage doors and the alarming system or the locking system at that property. So when we're ready to start storing objects at that facility, we'll be able to do so in a secure fashion.
Thanks. Thanks, Elisa.
Yep, thank you.
Any other board comments? All right, hearing none, we are now adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.